Hey guys, back here at NRG Stadium, and we're going to talk about the Texans, especially the offense. So today we had a conversation with Nick Caley, and we went through a lot of things and have some takeaways from some of Nick's comments. And one of the last things he said, his last words on today's press conference, I believe in what we're doing. I believe in the people in this building. And he says he puts pressure on himself to be urgent, try to get some things done, doesn't let these things fester. Obviously, the Texans, if there's a rock bottom, I don't think they want to find it. This is really bad through 2 games. They are, of course, the lowest scoring offense in the NFL, averaging 14 points a game. They are the worst red zone team in the NFL, only team in the league to not score in the red zone. The Texans are 28th in yardage per game. They are also last in third down conversion percentage, 22.2%. They average 265 yards per game. So you know the stats. You guys keep up with these things too. And I kind of want to talk about process versus results. So, one of the things that kind of came up with Nick Caley today, and that was a comment that I heard from Nick Caserio before, and that was during the bad old days, the David Culley, Lovie Smith era. And I don't think that he meant to indicate, the process is more important or anything like that, but some people could take it that way. I understand that. And, it doesn't need to be about the process because you have to have a good process to get to the results. But the results, it's a result-driven business. And right now, the Texans' results are very underwhelming. It's a hard watch, right, guys? They try to force the football to Nico Collins. They don't really scheme it up that well. 9 targets, 3 catches, 1 touchdown. It fell apart after the initial really success that they had there in the first quarter. Same thing for C.J. Stroud. Okay, in talking to Nico today in the locker room, I got a real sense that he thinks they're close. He feels like they just got to stay the course, got to stick with it. I don't think they have any other choice. They don't have like a better option out there. Perhaps having Christian Kirk will allow Nick Caley to have more of a comfort zone and C.J. Stroud to have more of a comfort zone, calling the plays, orchestrating the offense, and looking like a more efficient football team. So you look at some of the scheduling things that they've had. They're not on schedule. Lots of second and longs, third and longs, not as efficient, and Caley acknowledged this as they want to be. So I asked him a question about the goal line sequence. A lot of you guys are very curious. What happened? How does that happen? How do you have first and goal and you get no points? I mean, you try on 4th down, obviously, and you turn it over on downs. So this was what he had to say about that. Ran the ball, he got stuffed by Vita Vea. That was terrible, really. The block or lack of block, kind of a lookout block from Laken Tomlinson. They get to 3rd down, and they're forcing the football to Nico Collins, and he says he called a red zone, a low red zone play they have a lot of belief in. I mean, CJ didn't throw it well. That's a big thing. I don't think it was that creative, though, what they did down there in the goal line either, though. So 4th down again, another low red zone. Didn't work out. He says they have to assess these things. We all can do better, trying to move forward. So you guys want to know, well, where's the growth? Did they get worse in week 2? Did they get any better? It looked a little better at the beginning, right? It didn't look great over 4 quarters either week. So he says there's been a lot of growth. Maybe it's hard to find it. Maybe it's hard to see the growth, but perhaps he knows something. They are going to have their, I kind of think, run out of excuses a little bit. They're playing a Jaguars team, obviously, that's had some success, but it wasn't very good last year. There's a rookie head coach that has a lot of young players. They've been drafting very high for years. So this one at 0-2, they got to be able to get this one, right? Well, not necessarily. I mean, do you really love the matchup? Don't you think the Jaguars have some good personnel? We'll get into that toward the latter half of the video, but I want to stick with Caley for now. So he says there's a lot of growth, and there's an element to the results, live with the results. But the process is more important, he says. Where he sees growth is starting fast, right intent, urgency in and out of the huddle, good focus and energy, fundamentals improving, about finishing those things and finishing drives and striving to do that. And it kind of starts on the practice field. I don't know. I mean, it's just got to get better. However you get to that, that's fine. It's kind of like, people don't want to hear about the pregnancy. They want to be like, show me the baby, right? or show me the money. No, I'm not going to yell here in this NFL building like Jerry Maguire. Should I? Show me the money. And I'm still your agent. All right. My inner Jerry Maguire, Rod Tidwell, great movie, love it. And it's funny, I actually know some of the real people in the movie. So the Lee Steinbergs and the Drew Rosenhauses. Don't know Tom Cruise, but Tom, anytime you want to come on the channel, you are more than welcome. So they do get Christian Kirk back. They get a savvy player, a good player, and someone that Nick Caley calls a special person. Very smart, very versatile. They're excited. They think they have some good things for him. He's healthy and he's been limited in practice, but he's moving pretty well. I've been watching him on those cuts, the parts that we get to watch of practice. I think he looks good. Also saw some juggling today. You guys saw my juggling video with Nico Collins, a little juggling act. Hand-eye coordination that he builds with that. Same thing with Dalton Schultz. They both like to do that. So what about the offensive line? How do you fix things for the line? How do you get things a little bit better? So they have this intention about building the protections, building the scheme. How do you contour the coverage? All those things. There's certain blitzes, trying to set the table, trying to build those passing concepts. And, in terms of, he was asked a lot about Nico Collins, kind of gave a very long answer to that one. And it was kind of like a little bit of the coach speak, unfortunately, just wasn't there. He says the offensive linemen, by the way, that they understand their assignments, that they work hard at it. I would hope so. They spend a lot of time on these protections. They work very hard. It's not a matter of work ethic. He likes to be seen from what he marks, his pass protection. I agree with that. Wants to know about using the rookies more. I think they should. And he says they've done a good job. So they got to keep working at it. And you can kind of tell where this press conference is going. It's just kind of a tough one. And again, I keep coming back to the belief. Keep working and process over results. So that is Texans offensive coordinator Nick Caley talking about the situation there. And, really the only unit that played well, that can pat themselves on the back. Frank Ross's special teams. Block punt, Jakob Johnson. Long return by Jalen Noel. Do they have Braxton Berrios and Jalen split the reps up between returns, punt, kickoff? We'll see. Is Berrios up? Is he going to be active? Are they going to definitely have him active this game? We'll see. That was kind of the plan going into the season, but then he got injured. So, like with Jakob, they haven't blocked punts before. This is a big deal to have the block punt. With Matt Burke, the defensive coordinator, he's asked a lot of questions about finishing, about tackling. So today they had an extensive tackling period. Though they didn't do the Oklahoma drill, they didn't take guys into the ground. The safety coach, Stephen Dagoke, was out there getting tackled. He had pads on, like I've shown you that video before, where they tackle the coach onto the pads and take him down, and they get to hit the coach. That's cool. And so I asked C.J. Gardner-Johnson, I said, hey, is Coach Steve a tough guy? And he thought that was funny. He said, oh yeah, real tough. He did play safety at Mississippi State, so I can tell you this, he's tough. So what about the swarm mentality, the fundamentals, all those things? Matt Burke said they're trying to balance being under control, not missing the tackle, having the right eye placement when it comes to coverage. All of those things can help. He kind of acknowledged that, the defensive tackles didn't play that great. I thought Vali Fadakasi had a tough game. There was obviously a poor run defense. They've got to hope that that's a 1 week thing, that they aren't going to have people running all over them. They have a tough match with Brian Thomas Jr. That came up, and how talented he is and how good he's been against the Texans. So, they could use this guy behind me. This is a photo of 99, J.J. Watt, 3-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year. He's not welcome back in the building, though. He's calling these games now, doing a great job with that. So the Jaguars have only allowed 1 sack. Some of that's a byproduct of Trevor Lawrence getting the ball out of his hands, and some of it is just the fact that the offensive line is playing very well. So with Anderson, he's got to become more of a finisher. After the 10 pressures, you got to finish. And he agreed with that. We talked a little about that in the locker room. And another thing that has come up a little bit is Azeez Al-Shire, and whether he's going to get a nasty reception. He's expecting it. I think the Texans, they're not going to do anything different, but they do expect that to happen, for that to go down. And yeah, I'm sure they'll boo old Aziz as he comes back to Jacksonville. And that was, of course, where he had a controversial hit on Trevor Lawrence that caused a concussion, that caused fights, that led to his ejection, suspension for 4 games. And they didn't like the way that John Runyon, the NFL disciplinary officer, talked about Aziz. Aziz, as you guys saw in the other video, addressed all of this, said that if he's misunderstood, it's not for people to understand him, except the people that care about him. He's not too worried about what strangers think about him. I agree with that. I mean, do you really want to focus on the people that don't like you and don't know you? I mean, what's the point? What are they going to do for you? Do they pay your bills? No. I face critics all the time. Guess what? I don't care. Don't care. People could talk. So Nico Collins, I do think there's some ways for them to scheme this up, to get him the football, to make this a more productive experience, the way it was last year. And, Bobby Slowick's not walking back through the door. I don't know, I'm like joking, obviously he's working for the Miami Dolphins, but they need to make this work with Nick Caley, and they can, but it's going to take some patience, and it's going to take a plan. And they got to protect better. CJ's got to be more accurate. They got to run the football more effectively. If you take out the Nick Chubb run, and I do believe the Buccaneers let him score. I really think that the more and more interviews I watch of the Buccaneers and just watching the play, you can kind of tell they didn't try. Okay. He had a 1.4 average besides that. So the running game, which I thought was one of the only bright spots in week 1 against another stout team, and it kind of tells me this. Are the Texans good enough to beat the good teams? Big picture. Right now, how would you say that? Do they look like a team that would beat Baltimore, Buffalo, or even, let's say, if Kansas City starts getting their act together? I don't think so. Not right now. Maybe as they develop. So I'm patient, and again, it's not really about my patience or lack thereof. It's more about what they do. What is the functional stuff that they do to get better? And that's ultimately what they say. This is an improvement league. You either improve and get better, or you stay the same, or you get worse. I try to apply these concepts to what I'm doing. I'm either getting better, making better videos, and speaking more eloquently, organizing my thoughts, and writing good stories, or doing some good reports, and being consistent. That's a big thing. I want to stack those days. So the same thing for the players, different arena, but similar concept. We're all chasing success, right? Should be trying to chase greatness. That's what we hope for. You want to be good. So Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, I agree with that. I mean, they'll throw it to a Higgins or a Hutchinson, and then they get away from it. I think sometimes you got to apply that ain't broke, don't fix it mentality. You look at everything they're doing. I thought Arion Territory made some strides in week 2, playing left tackle, looked much more comfortable. Then with Laken Tomlinson, that was a tough game. 1.5 sacks, 5 pressures. He's up against some really good players there in the interior. Ed Ingram, it was just okay. Nothing like earth-shattering. Titus Howard is by a mile their best offensive lineman. And I think Harrison Bryant's got to give them more at the tight end position than he did this last game as a compliment to Dalton Schultz, who's played some good football. And we'll see. Brendan Bates, everybody thinks he's just a blocker. Seen him make some plays before, including in the Hall of Fame game last year against the Texans when he was playing for the Chicago Bears. So fullback, are they going to use Jakob Johnson even more? How are they going to handle things? It doesn't look like Dameon Pierce goes from healthy scratch to playing, so you got to think it's, British Brooks is up again. Looking at, how did the usage of Braxton Berrios in the return game, we'll be watching that closely. And then with the other running backs, I just wonder if at some point, do they go with Woody Marks, or do they have kind of a committee approach with him and Nick Chubb? But makes me wonder, how much more could he handle? You saw the blitz pickup. That was good. Shifting to defense, Sheldon Rankins played a really good football game. He's still a really talented guy. That was outstanding. A little quiet start from Mario Edwards Jr., and they have yet to play Tommy Togiai. Some missed tackles, uncharacteristic of Henry To'oTo'o. Usually plays a cleaner game than that. Kind of makes me wonder, should they be playing EJ Speed a little bit more? Because he shows some real promise and potential, and he was a big-time tackler for the Colts last year. What about his trade opportunities? Could that be something? Could the Texans get something good for him? I don't know. I think he's a starting linebacker for a lot of teams. I thought C.J. Gardner-Johnson made some progress, played a little bit better. I don't think it's really a distraction, him and Baker Mayfield going back and forth. I don't think that's a big deal, but Baker wins the argument. They got the W. They got the win. So some injury updates. We don't think Jalen Smith is going to play. My understanding is that he's going to need a little time. So at least this week, maybe a little longer. Hamstring is in kind of the middle. Issue is in the middle of the hamstring, not high, which would have been worse. Kind of the middle hamstring. So that strain's got to heal. Then Jalen Petrie, rib injury. He should be fine. He should play. Kamari Lassiter, knee injury, also expected to play. These guys were all limited on the injury report. And then Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr., they're playing some good football. They're really playing really well. Danielle Hunter, 101.5 career sacks. Congratulations to Danielle from Katie Morton Ranch. Outstanding play. It's been a little quiet with some of the backups here with like Derek Barnett, Foley Fatukasi. Like I said, I don't think that was a really good game. Kind of waiting still to hear from Darrell Taylor, who was lights out during the offseason. Really outstanding player. So third corner, Tremont Smith. So that's what they got. And we'll just see if they have D'Angelo Ross up. How do they handle that situation? So some good things happening with the defense, but nothing that's going to satisfy anybody. And then special teams, it's been a good operation with Kaimi Fairburn and Austin Brinkman and Tommy Townsend. Tommy Townsend's punted well. So just kind of looking over some of the performances, good returns, good productivity from Jalen Noel. I would think that, with the Texans, maybe they elevate Jakob Johnson again, looking at some of the other possibilities. That'll be his third and final elevation, so we'll see if they do that. Could a corner like Damon Arnett Jr. or D'Angelo Ross, could they be up? Maybe they do that. Or Miles Bryant, and then they ship someone else over, because Miles can play nickel, safety. He's played outside corner. I don't think that's really his forte, but a valuable all-around kind of guy. So, guys, that's some interesting things that, kind of have gone on here with the Texans. You saw my separate video on Jimmy Ward and the no bill, meaning he was not indicted. Repeat, not indicted. I know many people thought, he's accused of this, it means he must have done it. Guess what? I met with him during the time that he was, under all this, and then I had a chance to trade some messages with him, and I had a chance to talk with him. And this wasn't an interview. It was, he was at a charity event, Trade the Truth, bowling alley event. And I want to share this story now. So I've known Jimmy for a couple of years. I've gone to all of his charity events that he's had. I've had lunch with him before. I've been at the children's book thing. And so when it first happened, I was like, wow, this is surprising. I don't know. I want to find out more. And the more I found out, I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but I would just say this. I went there because I wanted to show him that I believe what he's saying. I'm not going to just rush to judgment. Obviously, I have the facts form any journalism, any reporting I do, but at the same time, I don't just accept that someone says something. That means that someone did something. You want proof. Well, the grand jury took his side, and he was found innocent under the exculpatory evidence that was presented, which included text messages from the baby's mother, from the accuser, who is also accusing him in a $20 million lawsuit that is active. I don't know when he'll play. I think that he's got to get healthy. They've got to figure out, are they suspending him? I spoke with the NFL. They're going to make a decision at some point. Are they going to suspend him, or are they going to kind of call it time served? I don't know that. I don't know if they know that. So we'll see what happens. But they are gathering the information, all the information they can get, the packet of information from Jimmy's attorneys, Steve Jackson, Andrea Kolsky. She's a former prosecutor, and they're based out of the Conroe area and Woodlands, so out there in Montgomery County. But he's issued a statement to me, and he's happy to not have this cloud over his head. This was the most important matter for Ward. He's 34 years old. I think it's going to be his last year playing. He'd like to go out not with this kind of thing hanging over his head. And we'll see, does he get to play some football? Maybe they let him contribute once he's healthy enough. But right now, obviously, they don't need a starting safety. They've got Kalen Bullock, they've got C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and the plan basically this year before all this happened was to have him on the roster as a backup. And I think they would have found some kind of role. He can not even play nickel. There's things he can do. We'll see how that goes. I think it's an interesting case. I've covered other domestic cases before. I broke the Ray Rice story when I was working for the Baltimore Sun, and you never know what goes on behind closed doors. But the fact is, legally, he was found that there was no probable cause for the case to go forward. I repeat, they had exculpatory evidence from subpoenaing records, doing their investigation, doing their due diligence, that ultimately led to the end of the case. It will not be refiled. So we'll see what happens with the NFL. We'll see what happens with the Tony Busby $20 million lawsuit. All these things we'll continue to report. And yeah, I look forward to going to Florida. I covered the Jaguars a long time ago. I was covering high school sports at the University of Florida, and I would do Jags games and practices, and I would just gather my experience. This is when I was just out of school, working for the St. Augustine Record newspaper. It's a really good small town that I lived in. They call it the Ancient City. So this takes me back to my roots. Once a year, going back to Jacksonville and covering some football. So we'll see what happens, but this is a big game. The Texans need this one, and we'll see. Can they get the job done on Sunday? I kind of think they're going to bounce back. Maybe I'm being too optimistic, but I think they got a shot. So we'll see what happens. That's why they play the games. I don't love the fact that the other team's got a good running game. They got Brian Thomas. They got a good quarterback. He's hard to sack. And their defense, they've got some guys like Trevon Walker and Oluokun and Tyson Campbell. Won't be easy, but I just don't think they're in the same category as the Rams and the Buccaneers. I think they're like a step below. And maybe step below is something the Texans can compete with. But it's going to be very instructive to see what this game means and how they go about it. So guys, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for, I don't really go off on any tangents, but today I just felt like it. You know what? That was something I felt like doing, so thanks for tuning in. Talk soon. Please watch, like, and subscribe to the channel. We're at 17,200 now, and we're just going to keep growing and growing. So like I said, next goal, 18,000. Let's get big. And anybody that wants to support this channel, like maybe about sponsorships, things like that, I'm quite easy to find. So DM's open. So let me know. And maybe we could do some business. But like I said, I want to be in business with the right kind of people that have a shared vision for what it's all about, and just good fundamentals and good people, and so paying customers, that kind of thing. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, guys, thanks so much. Talk to you soon. Bye.